Trump's presidency, drop it. All right, power panel. Mark Thompson, Cenk Uygur, and Johnny Pye. John Iadarola is here. Okay, so tick, 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 tick.
That's the graphic you need. You need a tick, tick, tick graphic. I can't believe, do we have a tick, tick, tick graphic?
You know we don't, but you are 100% right that we need one. Graphics department on it right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a rush job. They probably have like 2 to 6 years to get it done.
Or 2 to 6 days. Ooh. So. Well, as you're about to see in our first story, that is what some folks think. So some Republicans think. So we're gonna get to that obviously imminently. Got a lot of great stories for you guys, of course, as always, including the end of the Trump presidency. But furthermore, bad news, the end of the planet. So the story about the oceans heating up is devastating, devastating. So a story on income inequality, devastating. So lots of good news, lots of bad news. That's what we do on the Young Turks. Okay, I'm ready. Let's do it, John.
Okay, let's do it. Let's have a little bit of fun. On air, some Fox hosts are implying that this whole Ukraine thing, this whole impeachment thing, there's nothing there. It's going to go away very soon. Others are taking it very seriously. Behind the scenes, bedlam, apparently, according to a new Vanity Fair article from Gabriel Sherman. This quote certainly stands out. It's management bedlam. This massive thing happened and no one knows how to cover it, which is perhaps why so many different shows are covering it in such different ways and in fact feuding with each other, as we're gonna get to in a little bit. Apparently this morning, Sean Hannity told friends that the whistleblower's allegations are, quote, really bad. A person briefed on Hannity's conversations told the author. Hannity did not respond to a request for comment, but why would he? So obviously on his show, he has been gung-ho 100%. There is nothing here. Our focus should instead be on a variety of several-year-old right-wing conspiracy theories. Behind the scenes, he's telling his friends, no, this is actually pretty serious.
Yeah, so let's be clear. They don't really, not really, they don't have any defense. So I'm gonna explain it for the 17th time because apparently Fox News hosts don't understand it. Although to be fair, that is not really, they're now beginning to be significantly split. So last night we talked to you about the Fox News civil war, Tucker Carlson and Shep Smith at each other's throats. So we got more news on that in a second. Chris Wallace continues it with today. Chris Wallace with not only damning quotes about Trump, but also going after his fellow Fox News hosts again. So this war will not abate at Fox News because some of them have broken ranks and going, no, it's illegal. There's nothing, it's just a lie to say it's not illegal. So let me explain why it's illegal for the 100th time for people who haven't heard it before or have listened to conservative news and have never gotten facts. They keep saying as a defense, like Ainsley Earhardt did, well, there's no quid pro quo. First of all, that's not true. There already is quid pro quo in that call, plus let alone whatever they're hiding in the secret database, but you don't need quid pro quo at all. So it's so easy to show you guys. So if Bernie Sanders were to go to a foreign government, like let's say North Korea, right? And he says, hey, when you're talking to Donald Trump, Kim Jong-un, can you do a quick favor for me? And just like Trump said, a favor, right? Just do me a favor, put a bug on him. And then tell me everything that he's saying because I want to use it as dirt in my political campaign. But Sanders does not promise Kim Jong-un anything in return. Would that be illegal? The answer is yes, it would definitely be illegal. And so when Trump asks for a favor from a foreign government to help his political campaign, that's already illegal. It does not need to be followed up by, and then I promise you I'll give you a dozen roses, box of chocolates, or $400 million of military aid. It's already illegal, 100% illegal, indisputably illegal. And I've actually haven't heard what the Republican defense of that is, other than squirrel, right? So they're like, oh, no quid pro quo. Oh yeah, but Hunter Biden did something. But there's no actual defense because it is indefensible. It is the most obviously illegal thing that we have seen. In fact, guys, I'm gonna go right now because this just happened a little bit before we went live. Chris Wallace's quotes
I've got one.
You have them? Okay, so go ahead, John.
We're gonna jump to the last graphic in this. This is one thing Chris Wallace said. The spinning that has been done by the president's defenders over the last 24 hours since this very damaging whistleblower complaint came out, the spinning is astonishing and I think deeply misleading. He is being just vague enough there that the people who he's definitely talking about at Fox News can't say that he attacked them, and we'll get into why he's worried about being very specific there in a little bit. But he's clearly talking about hosts on Fox News that are using White House approved talking points to defend him and to distract from the issue.
So I've got even more on Chris Wallace in a minute as we give you more details, but I wanna go to a little exchange that he had with Sandra Smith, who was the host that he was talking to on Fox News at the time. Sandra Smith interrupts him at one point to say, well, hey, there's no quid pro quo, because that's their main deflection point here. And Wallace says, you asked a question, let me answer it, Sandra. He says, you don't think that dirt on the vice president and his son's activities would be of value to a president seeking re-election? Now, the reason he frames it that way is because in the law, soliciting a campaign contribution, whether it's cash or an in-kind donation of anything of value from a foreign government, is illegal. So that's why Wallace is saying, you don't think dirt on your political opponent is anything of value? I mean, it's preposterous to say that it doesn't have value. Of course it does. In fact, it's gonna cost Ukraine a lot of money to go through, if they were to go through an investigation, go through a prosecution, get that information to Donald Trump. It is inarguable that it is of value. It is inarguable Donald Trump solicited. It is inarguable that Ukraine is a foreign government. So that is why Chris Wallace, still a journalist, a very conservative one, but a journalist on Fox News going, I read the law, I'm a sentient human being. It's obviously illegal is his implication here.
Well, they're propagandists at Fox, so I don't expect them to let go of this, but Cenk's making an important point, which is slowly they are letting go of it. Even guys who have been leading the propaganda parade are beginning to let go of this. And that, in some sense, you look to Fox News as sort of a bellwether for the Trump presidency. And as they begin to let go, you think, politically, he may be taking on some water. And if he takes on enough water, more people will turn on him. And I'm talking about Republican legislators will turn on him as well.
Yeah.
20 delirious tweets in 14 hours. You can tell how much trouble Trump is in by the ferocity and velocity of his tweets. So the more trouble he's in, and this has happened a couple of times before when things got really bad, and before the Democrats let him off the hook each time, right? But as things get bad and Trump realizes, he's like, witch hunt, hoax, witch hunt, Fox News, help me, right? And so that's exactly what's happening here. It's funny that you used that analogy, Mark, yesterday. I started the show by saying the ship head is in the water and it's starting to rise. And as Anna pointed out, at some point, it's gonna break off before it all goes in the water.
Yeah, and so you pointed out the nature of what it would take for it to be a crime. One of the other evasions, they have a variety of different evasions, is just a concern about corruption, because Donald Trump genuinely cares about corruption in Ukraine. He only brings up 2 instances of it in his view. One is the Democratic nominee in 2016 that he ran against. The other at the time was the front runner in this presidential election. Like, come on, he's not even trying to hide it. He's not smart enough to pretend. Look up a name of a Ukrainian who was corrupt and name that person too. Pretend that it has anything to do other than your own personal political interests. But anyway, on the Fox stuff, there are apparently plans in place in case this does turn against him, as Sean Hannity implied that it could potentially. According to 4 sources, the CEO of Fox Corp, Lachlan Murdoch, is already thinking about how to position the network for a post-Trump future. A person close to Lachlan told me that Fox News has been the highest rated cable network for 17 years, and the success has never depended on any one administration. And what's really interesting about this, and also sad, and I love that this is in the story, it totally wouldn't have expected this person to pop up once again. Among the powerful voices advising Lachlan that Fox should decisively break with the president is former House Speaker Paul Ryan, who joined the Fox board in March. Quote, Paul is embarrassed about Trump and now he has the power to do something about it.
Yeah.
Unlike when he was actually in office.
Unlike when
that's
he was
the saddest thing ever.
No, but that really is very telling of our current political environment. That the Speaker of the House for the Republican Party thought there was nothing he could do about the Republican president, even though the Speaker of the House is arguably the second most powerful political office in the country. And But if you're on the board of Fox News, well, then you might be able to do something about the president, right? But guys, it's by the way, yes, the pictures are very funny next to me.
I did that as a Halloween costume once.
That's from his 70s sitcom. Is that what those pictures are?
But this goes to two things that I've been telling you from day one. Why was I positive Donald Trump wouldn't make it to the end of his presidency? One is too stupid to cover things up, right? And what did John tell you earlier? Jesus Christ, dude, 1 minute of homework. Say to a staffer, name me one corrupt guy in Ukraine so I could make it seem like I actually care about corruption, right? You know what, give me an instance of corruption anywhere else in the world I can talk about so I could say like, oh my God, you know what's happening in Malaysia? And then Patrashikov in Ukraine. I mean, I'm really worried about it. But hey, turns out we've got our own problems. I mean, look at Biden, right?
Yeah.
But instead he's like, hey, I want stuff on Biden and his son and the CrowdStrike thing that Hillary did. That's why I care about corruption in Ukraine. Yeah. God, you're so stupid. You're the dumbest man alive. The reporters keep trying to figure out like, what's his strategy? There's no strategy. Come on, man. There's no strategy.
Jake,
look at the guy.
You fool, you've walked right into his trap.
Yeah. No, by the way, Tucker Carlson said my favorite line today. I'm glad you reminded me of that. He wrote an op-ed on his own website and he said, the Democrats might really be destroying themselves by trying to impeach Trump. Oh, Tucker, are you concerned about the Democrats?
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing in the world, the fall concern. Like, oh, poor Democrats. I mean, look, I don't mind you impeaching Trump, but I just feel really bad that you guys are destroying yourselves.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to look out for you guys.
I always turn to Tucker Carlson and Meghan McCain for progressive political strategy because they're always so concerned about us.
Yeah.
By the way, me joking that this is some sort of trap that we've walked into is not to say that it won't blow up in the Democrats' faces. But if it does, it will not be because of the political machinations of Donald Trump. It'll be the incompetence of Democratic leadership.
Oh, it could be.
As it always is.
That's so true. It could very easily blow up, but you're right. There's nothing premeditated about all of this. Trump just, he can't get out of his own way. But you're right. The Democrats still have work to do, right?
Yeah. And so, and by the way, unlike the liars at Fox News, or by the way, the remaining liars, because some of them it turns out are actually honest but conservative, which there's nothing wrong with. Like I'll say, hey, if you support Donald Trump in the impeachment, like Susan Collins and at least 5 Republican senators will definitely lose their elections. But I don't do it with like fall concern, like, oh, Susan Collins, I'm so worried about you. You might lose your election. No, I want you to lose your election. If you support Donald Trump and you vote with him, I'm going to be ecstatic when you lose. So see, that's the difference between someone who's honest and a liar. Okay, anyway, so the second thing that why Donald Trump wouldn't be able to get away with it is, that I've been telling you about is he burns too many bridges. Not on the other side, on his own side. So he slapped Paul Ryan around when Paul Ryan was Speaker of the House because Paul Ryan didn't want Trump to win the primary in the first place. And then when the Access Hollywood tapes came out, Paul Ryan said that they were terrible, etc. And Trump never forgave him for that. And while Bannon was in the White House, he would have Breitbart write one article after another about how Paul Ryan shouldn't be Speaker of the House. He was terrible and incompetent and a loser. I mean, it was clear Trumpian language in the article, right? Paul Ryan saw that and stored that away because he's weak, right? And he's a sad little boy like Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell. But now that Trump can't touch him anymore, and he's on the Fox board, he's like, oh, you should get Trump, right? But there's a lot of Republicans like that. Jeff Flake says there are he's a former Republican senator. He just retired, right? He says, I was just in Senate. There's 35 Republicans that would vote against him in impeachment if it was a secret vote. He's incinerated bridges on his own side, and eventually that catches up with you.
Yeah.
And speaking of burnt bridges, Gabe Sherman's absolutely right. Fox News is his last bulwark. And actually Jake Tapper talked about it today. He said Nixon didn't have Fox News and didn't have trolls online. If he did, he might have survived. So Nixon just committed crimes. Everybody admitted they were crimes and he was out. Trump commits crimes. Fox News goes, no, it's not. It's not a crime, it's roses. What, right? Plus squirrel. And then the trolls attack online, and then the media feels like, oh, I guess we got to go 50-50, whether it's crimes or not crimes.
Yeah.
And by the way, the media's done a pretty good job, but they're still having debates over things that are not debatable. And so he's right about that. But now I go back to Chris Wallace. He said, for all the efforts of a lot of people defending the president, to defend this as nothing, this isn't nothing, this is something. And he goes on to say that it is very deeply troubling. So if this continues, and oh my God, if he loses Hannity, it's over. He'll resign.
He won't lose Hannity.
But he won't lose him. He won't lose him publicly. It seems unimaginable.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, Hannity will wait until the last White House light is off before he lets go of Trump.
Yeah.
Well, and in terms of who's going to be lost too, I think it'll be interesting to see if Fox is having some sort of internal debate about should we stick with him and hope that, especially with us, that he can just get through it, or should we position ourselves for when he's gone, sort of preemptively, sort of move away, distance ourselves. It'll be interesting to see who gets fired first, either Paul Ryan from the board or Shep Smith from his show.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
And I also want to say, when I say that Hannity won't let go of him, I'm not just being snide there. I think that there are a lot of ways to maintain your loyalty and sort of leave this issue of right and wrong aside. I mean, even Nixon, when he resigned, he just felt, I don't want to burden the nation with this. You look for whatever high ground or ridiculous high ground there might be. I think that that's what Sean Hannity will do all along. He will find some rationale for why he doesn't let go of this man who doesn't come from political life. He comes from a civilian life. He's trying to do things, but he couldn't stand up to the witch hunt.
Yeah. Look, I can't help myself but be honest here. I actually think Fox News should not abandon Donald Trump. So I would love it if they do, and it would help Trump to go under. It would help prove my prediction right, but a billion times more important is it would get this madman out of office and a guy who committed crimes. It would restore rule of law, etc. But if you're asking my honest opinion on where their viewers are, their viewers don't mind criminality at all.
Yeah.
They don't mind immorality at all. But if you betray the mob boss, they will probably mind that. Yeah. So look, if you're anyone who is overestimating the morality of the Fox News audience, you've made a terrible mistake. So that's where I think it comes down to. But I think that the Murdochs, the younger generation, Lachlan Murdoch, are embarrassed of Fox News, and it cost them business interests throughout the world. They couldn't do a merger in the UK because they're like, you guys are monsters. I mean, look at the nonsense. Yeah. You say you do news, but look at Fox News, they don't do news at all. And outside of America, where we're not constantly bombarded by propaganda of the right wing, in other places in the world, since they're not exposed to that insanity of the false equivalency of lies and truth, they realize, no, Fox News is nothing but lies. So they can't get things approved in other countries. They're like, you guys are the ones that spread all the lies in America. And so it might not be right for Fox News, but it might be right overall for the Fox Corporation to go against Trump.
This is a key point, and I'm so glad you've made it, because I don't think that in any of these, in the Vanity Fair piece or in any of these accounts of what's going on at Fox News, you can see a conscience necessarily in Lachlan Murdoch. But what Cenk is talking about is very important. They have other business interests internationally that are being affected by this. And so when you start affecting their bottom line, that's different, and that necessitates potential changes.
Yeah, and one last marker for you guys that I think you'll enjoy. If you start to hear conservative pundits, especially on Fox News, but anywhere, and conservative legislators start to talk about how great Mike Pence is, tick, 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 tick. That means there's only 2 weeks left, okay? Maybe less, but that means they're starting to go, well, I mean, Pence is not so bad. Pence not so bad. We could be all right with Pence. In fact, Sean Hannity is probably going through that mentally right now. He might not say it on air yet, but he's thinking, well, I mean, Pence is an evangelical, a fundamentalist Christian, actually arguably more right-wing than Donald Trump. Pence not so bad, Pence not so bad. You start to hear it on air and Trump is gone. That means they've already made the calculations. They've already gotten to the place in their head where they're okay with Pence. Bye-bye.
First break.
All right, let's do a break. And when we come back, we move on to bad news. We'll be right back. We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks. Lots of comments, fun comments, so big comments, strong comments. So we're gonna do them. Okay, first member section as always, tyt.com/join to become a member. Keldo had writes in, the utter chaos on Fox News is so wonderful. Right there with your brother. Madness writes in, Does it strike anyone else as weird that corporate Dems and their media cronies seem to believe they're completely immune to Oppo research, especially considering there are many examples of similar corruption on their side? Shouldn't we strive for equal enforcement, otherwise the law is moot? Well, it depends on what you mean. So if, for example, if you're talking about Hunter Biden being on the board of a Ukrainian gas company at $50,000 a month, is he on there because he's a Ukrainian gas specialist? No, he's on there because his last name is Biden. 100%. I won't even have that conversation. So is that a form of corruption? Yes. Is it illegal? Unfortunately, no, it's not illegal. So you could, if you're a family member of a powerful person in Washington, you can cash in all day long, and that's how they all get money to their families. That's why they don't really want to talk about that. It's really uncomfortable. But when Biden goes and says, I won't give you $1 billion unless you get rid of this prosecutor. If the prosecutor was actively prosecuting the company that his son was on the board of, and he did that with knowledge, yes, then it would be the same exact problem as Donald Trump. But as it turns out, I'm not taking Biden's word for it. Biden said I didn't talk to my son. That doesn't mean anything, right? No, as it turns out, that prosecutor had stopped investigating that company, and all the world bodies wanted that prosecutor out. And so and by the way, the ambassador and the official American position was, we think you should continue the investigation into the company that Hunter Biden was on the board of. So that is monumentally important. That's the exact opposite of quid pro quo.
Right, he was essentially visiting against the interests of his own son.
Kind of, certainly, like he said, get the prosecutor out. That prosecutor at some point had gone after Hunter Biden's company, the company that he's on the board of. But the official American position at the same time was, yes, get the prosecutor out, like Joe said. But the one thing you guys should continue is the investigation into Hunter Biden's company.
Yeah.
So that is an honest position, the correct position. The ambassador happened to deliver that, but it's still the same thing. It's the American government.
Right.
But I still think if we want to show the world how much we care about corruption, I think a good faith thing we could do is ask Biden to also step down out of the campaign. Just in case, it couldn't hurt.
That might be a little biased on our part.
You can send a tweet if you want, John, see how that goes.
Yeah.
I will.
Okay, now other fun things, that was important, but Eclectic Miscellanea says, why isn't TYT starting with the most important story of the day, that Trump doesn't know the difference between an apostrophe and a hyphen? That's impeachable by itself. Like the fact that the guy's a moron is not breaking news. Okay, Valerie says, the ship's head is underwater, big water, ocean water.
Oh, come on. I was just gonna use that for this intro. I'm still gonna do it.
Okay, Valerie, really great job. I don't know how we get people t-shirts anymore, but get Valerie a t-shirt somehow from shoptyt.com. And last couple ones here, Poetry in Motion says, yes, the hashtag TYT Live works on Roku TV, looking fly as always. Hey, we're on Roku. I was gonna say today, we're exclusively on Roku, Pluto, Zumo, YouTube TV, and our website today, not on YouTube Live, okay? But we're on all those platforms every day. And so if you tune in randomly as I did, you'll catch Damage Report, which is John's show. You can catch No Filter, you can catch Old School, etc. So all of our shows, 24 hours, cable news channel, boom, period.
And I was gonna say that you are looking fly. It's as though the words are taken right away from you.
That's so funny. All right, last one. Annam Leith says, yay, Mark Thompson in the house.
No.
This Friday just gets better and better.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
All right,
you know
thank
what?
you guys.
I normally don't care about these sorts of topics, but because Mark is here, I figured I'd give you an environmental story.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I know you don't really cover that much.
Yeah. But anyway, we're gonna move it now. Here in America, we are surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. And apparently there's problems with that water, according to a UN report that was just put out this week, compiling the work of tons and tons of different climate scientists. There is a lot in here, and it is scary, but it's also important for you to understand. So let's jump into a few of the conclusions of this incredibly important report. The warming climate is killing coral reefs, supercharging monster storms, and fueling deadly marine heat waves and record losses of sea ice. Let's run through a few of those. What does this actually look like? Well, ocean surface temperatures have been warming steadily since 1970, and for the past 25 years or so, they've been warming twice as fast. So not only is this process continuing, I don't know what you're hearing on right-wing media, but it is continuing and it is in fact accelerating. Things are only getting worse in the last few years. One consequence of this is that summer Arctic sea ice is now probably lower than at any time in at least 1,000 years. And the oldest, thickest ice has already declined by 90%. I love records, but this is not the sort of record that humanity can bear at this point. The lowest in 1,000 years, that's significant.
The upper layers of the ocean have lost between 0.5% and 3.3% of their oxygen since 1970 as the temperatures have risen. There are now heat waves in the ocean. So now you might not notice the heat waves because you're not in the ocean and you're of course not going to be able to perceive that. But they are monumentally important. So they're important not only for the fish, but also for the birds that feed off the fish. And then obviously eventually to humans. So let me give you just tip of the iceberg here, of the melting iceberg as it were. So when the oceans get warmer, there are pathogens that build in the oceans. And so when the pathogens build, they then move on to the fish. And so if you're eating raw fish like oysters and shellfish, it can get you sick. In fact, 80,000 Americans each year get sick from those seafoods, those particular seafoods, because of the pathogens in the water, let alone the rest of the world. That's just 80,000 Americans. So if you got sick and you went to the hospital and you had to pay $800 or $8,000, or maybe it bankrupted you, and plus all the horrors that you had to go through when you were sick, etc., you might think, oh well, it's bad luck. I ate an oyster and it turned out that it got me sick. It's not bad luck. You know whose fault that is? ExxonMobil. Seriously. Now, is it just ExxonMobil? Of course not. I use them as an example. But the people that are putting the carbon in the air, it is heating up the planet, including the oceans, which does lead to the pathogens, which does actually make 80,000 Americans sick, and it costs you all that money. Now, ExxonMobil is one of the most profitable companies in the world. They took home all the profits. Did they give you your $8,000 bill? No, you had to pay it.
Yeah.
So what they do is they socialize the gains. They privatize the gains and they socialize the costs. So in a sense, it's a weird form of socialism where only the costs are spread out to all of you. And I'm telling you, that is one of dozens and dozens of ways that it affects you. There was a blob of a heat wave in 2013 and 2014 in a particular part of the ocean. It led to the birds dying and then the fish getting affected, etc., which then led to fisheries being closed down in California and British Columbia. And that went all the way down the supply chain. You know what that did? That cost you jobs. So let alone the food chain. So when it costs you jobs, you thought, hey, bad luck, man. My fishery was closed down, or I couldn't get that trucking job because the British Columbia fishery got closed down. It wasn't bad luck. It was the cost of the fossil fuel industry being passed on to you. They won't pay their costs. They won't pay their costs. They make you pay it. Does that sound fair to you? Let alone the destruction of the planet.
Yeah, like AOC says, how are we ever going to pay for not having the Green New Deal? We just can't afford it. That cost is too high. And we have a couple of other specific things that we're gonna get into here, but one part that I want people to understand that I don't think gets talked about very often, it's likely that a lot of our audience is gonna know, but one of the important things to think about when you finally acknowledge that the ocean is heating up is that as bad as things have been getting in the atmosphere, on land, you've been paying attention, you know that it's been getting hotter. All this time, about a quarter of all the carbon dioxide that we've been putting out has not been going into the air, it's been absorbed into the ocean. And apparently something like 90% of all the excess heat that's been building up, that hasn't been going to the air, it's been going to the ocean. The ocean has been soaking up all of this stuff. But it can't do that forever. Eventually it will be tapped out. And when that happens, you don't get a slight increase at the rate of heating on land and in the atmosphere, it suddenly jumps up. That is going to be a major shock to the world system that I don't think a lot of people even know that is coming.
That's the great, I'm so glad you explained that, because that's the great fact that's looming, that what Cenk was talking about, that this acidification of the ocean, they're basic chemical processes that are being played out in the ocean. But what John is talking about is sort of a tipping point, and this thing that is acting as sort of a sink that absorbs all this CO2, it's running out of its ability to do that. As we generate more and more CO2, the Earth is cooking itself, and the ocean's ability to offset that is going to be completely gone soon. So that resource, as a check on CO2 content, that will be gone as well. And these huge dead zones that exist in the ocean, this is to Cenk's point, if you talk to fishermen, they will tell you, hey, it's just not like it used to be. It's not like it used to be 5 years ago. So these are dramatic changes, and the changes will become even more dramatic and even more dire in the years to come.
Look, once we've screwed up the ocean, you can't un-F the ocean. So like these conservatives go around like, don't worry about it, the scientists will fix it. How are the scientists supposed to fix the temperature of the ocean?
Ice, presumably.
Jesus Christ, man. And then you remember that guy on Fox News, the one that writes for Ben Shapiro's website? He went on and said Greta Thunberg, the wonderful Swedish girl who's trying to get us to pay attention to these facts, he called her a mentally ill child. And he said, well, if this was a real movement, it would be led by scientists and not by mentally ill children. But it is led by scientists, and you won't listen to them. So in fact, guys, I gotta tell you this is the most important thing. This report that we're referring to was written by more than 100 international experts and based on more than 7,000 studies. The jury is in. The scientists have spoken, and the scientists are usually mild-mannered people, and they are shouting from the rooftops, it's getting too late, we can't undo the damage. And then idiots go on Fox News and go, well, if the scientists were saying it. What do you mean if the scientists were saying it? They're all saying it. Look, if you didn't know how bad it was before you heard stories like this and before you realized it's all of the world's scientists, like in a disaster movie, warning us over and over again, that's okay, but technically you would be ignorant. And look, I've been ignorant about certain things and I learned them. In fact, even on climate change, back when I was a Republican 20 years ago, I was like, well, I don't know about that. And then the temperature kept rising and rising and I was like, oh, now I know, right? Okay, but if you know this information and you just heard it and you still go, no, me smarter than all scientists in the world. Me know ocean acidification better than they do. Well, then you're stupid. If you understand what the scientists are saying about climate change and you don't believe them, you are a stupid person. So we're having conversations with people that are barely out of the mental asylum. And that's the insane debate that's happening here. The rest of the world is looking at us like, what are you guys doing? We're all in the Paris Accords and that won't even get the job done. And you morons have left and you're not gonna participate as we all boil to death? So this is the situation at hand.
Yeah. Why don't we take our second break?
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff to get to.
Yeah.
That'll free up some time.
All right, when we come back, more Fox News, more Giuliani, more madness, lots of fights. And the fight with Geraldo is funny. The fight on Giuliani is important. So we'll talk about that when we come back.